Please welcome our first panel, Building America's Manufacturing Sector for the Future, moderated by Peggy Collins, Washington Bureau Chief, Bloomberg News.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. Our first panel of the day, we're going to be discussing Building America's Manufacturing Sector. We're going to be talking about the policies needed to keep America competitive, some of the ways top companies in the sector are dealing with worker shortages, and the creative solutions that they've come up with to not only recruit talent, but retain it. We have an esteemed panel with us of three top CEOs in the industry with us this morning. Blake Moret, CEO of Rockwell Automation, based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Sarah Armbruster, CEO of Steelcase Inc., based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And Peter Davoren, CEO of Turner Construction Company, based in New York. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you. Thank you.
Blake, I wanted to start with you. Rockwell Automation has a very robust hiring program when it comes to veterans. Can you talk about why you've seen such success with this program and how you see it as scalable to bring in even more workers beyond veterans?
Sure. Well, to start with is the need. As factories all over America automate, to be able to complement scarce labor with advanced technology, we, in talking with our customers, determined that technician jobs were really among the most scarce. And so being able to take people with a technical background of some sort, often not with, four-year degrees, but being able to come out with a high school degree and an occupational specialty that was technically oriented, we found in 12 weeks by applying the same program that we use internally to be able to train our field service engineers and our call support technicians, we were able to train people to go on to take jobs in manufacturing plants around the U.S. And it's a critical need. There's several 100,000 unfilled manufacturing jobs, and there's also several 100,000 veterans who have a lot of the soft skills that are a great starting point for this, who come out into civilian life each year. So it was a great match.
Well, Sarah, I wanted to turn to you to build on that. So Blake was just talking about the literally hundreds of thousands of jobs that are needed out there in the manufacturing sector. Another big group of talent that's hard to draw in and essential to the future is young people. So I know that your company at Steelcase, you've worked a lot at trying to reach people early on and talk about the ways that they can come into manufacturing and through apprentice programs. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
So, building on Blake's comments about scarcity, I think another part of the scarcity challenge for employers, especially in manufacturing, is that a lot of those young people don't think of manufacturing as either a starting point for their career or perhaps the end destination. So we've been really proud to partner with the Business Roundtable and their Skilled Trades Initiative. And we've also done things like work with the state of Michigan's Department of Labor in building an apprenticeship program that gives young people in colleges and even in some cases high school the opportunity to make site visits or participate in apprenticeships or internships or mentorship programs. And I think for a young person who maybe has never been inside a factory or has thought about manufacturing, when they walk in for the first time and they see that a modern manufacturing environment, it's not only clean, but it's high tech, it's cool, but it's also really human with lots of collaboration, lots of creativity, and lots of human-centered elements to it. And I think when they have that moment, it really changes everything in terms of opening up possibilities for them in their career.
Well, Peter, a couple of things that Sarah just touched upon. I know you think about every day with the construction industry, creating a clean and safe workplace environment, but also helping people to understand that, again, it can be a career that you can be in for a long time. How are you doing this in construction?
Well, thank you very much, Peggy. Well, we're under siege. There are 8 million construction workers that show up for work every day, and we're 500,000 short today. And probably in a year, there will be 750,000 short. And I think that the way we have to look at it is our industry is not that welcoming. It needs to be more welcoming. It needs to be more friendly. It needs to be a little bit more, it needs to be a little softer. So we started an initiative many years ago where we are taking every opportunity that we can to create an environment, no matter what it is, whether it's on the job site or in the office, create an environment where people can be at their best, be authentic, and be treated with respect and dignity. Eliminate hate and bias every minute of every day, and take all those energies and put them into active caring. Put them into in active caring for one another on our job sites, in our office, so that you feel that potentially you may be part of something extraordinary. That's the way we're putting our strategy together on every project, so people feel that they're part of something. They can be seen, they can be talked to, and our efforts are also on mental illness and suicide prevention, because it's the largest in the construction industry. The biggest impacts in the construction industry. So in order to meet the demand of the 500,000 and the 750,000 that we need in the next couple of years, we have to change the paradigm of the construction industry being more welcoming, being more friendly, and treating people with respect and dignity. You got to remember, when you were young, you probably were told by a parent or a guardian, go out and treat people the way you want to be treated. We need to bring that into the workplace.
So Peter, just to stay on that another moment, I think the company has tried over the past several years to also attract women into construction, which maybe decades ago they didn't think of as a career as much as they could now. How has the company been doing that?
Well, I'd say that the percentage of women has not jumped up as much as we would like it to. I think that welcoming issue is still part of the paradigm that we're fighting against. But there are a lot more women in the industry today. It's probably up from 6 to about 12%. And I think that that's still a very, very low number, being 50% of the population. So we were having a conversation before about people in STEM, how far students go into the industry after their STEM education, and there's a big fall off on both men and women. So we need to continue our efforts and do everything we can to bring more women, more disadvantaged people, more people that are disenfranchised, but more women, especially in our industry. The United States graduates about 125,000 engineers a year, and again, 20 to 25% of them are women.
So, like Peter was just talking about education, can you talk a little bit about what you think is needed in terms of in America around education to keep fueling the workforce we need for the future?
I think there's a few central comments that are relevant here. First of all, there's multiple pathways. There's not one size fits all. And we certainly understand the role of advanced degrees in a lot of the technology-oriented jobs, but there's so much that can be done where college is not an option for somebody coming out of high school. And one of the things we've found particularly effective are these quick hit programs. The Academy of Advanced Manufacturing, you saw the video of. It's a 12-week program, and we provide that free of charge for returning service people, and the cost is paid by the hiring companies. And Rockwell, we employ some of the graduates, but the majority go on to other manufacturing companies in the U.S. We have graduated about 500 people from this program, so it's a relatively small number, unless you're one of those people where it's an absolutely life-changing event. But it's a point of light, if you will, and by working with partners and the communities in which we're in, we found that this can be expanded with, and we've talked with other companies doing similar things, and together it does take a dent, it makes a dent in the population and in the shortages of these manufacturers. We see some policy that's helpful in this area, extending Pell Grants, for instance, to short-term programs, modernizing the Workforce and Innovation Opportunity Act. So there's some things there to be able to better align the realities of people, a lot of the young people coming out today, to be able to match what they have in their interest with, this huge number of unfilled jobs.
Sarah, I know there's a lot of talk in Washington right now about education and things like Pell Grants. You just mentioned, Blake. What are your thoughts on what's needed in terms of education policy?
Well, I would say that, in addition to the kinds of education policy items that Blake just mentioned, I think about it from the standpoint of an employer who says, okay, now I've hired that person, I've got to continue to invest in their learning and their development. So I think things like tax incentives for employers that continue to invest in training are critical. I think especially in a manufacturing environment, the shelf life today of a skill, I think, is shorter than ever. So it can't just be you train the person and then they're set for their career. I think learning and education has to be an ongoing part of someone's career to help them be successful and to help us as the employer be successful. So I think those kinds of incentives would be really beneficial. The other thing I think about is support for, again, things like modern apprenticeship programs, as we talked about earlier, ways to bring people in and combine hands-on training and job experience with formal education to enable people to really understand the tools and the technologies that they're going to be using on the job. So I think policies that can support those types of programs would be really beneficial for supporting us as employers and the U.S. workforce.
Sarah, you just touched on a couple of things I hope we'll talk more about, upskilling being one of them, but the other is a buzzword in Washington right now. You use the word tax. And certainly we've been reporting relentlessly on the tax bill that's moving through Washington right now and could reach the president's desk as soon as July 4th. So what are your thoughts in terms of some of the provisions in the tax bill right now that are potentially going to extend some business tax deductions for research and development, other depreciation? Like, what do you think is really, what are you hoping for in terms of what will come out of the tax bill?
Well, a couple of things that, I've been paying attention to, and obviously every day there's new news on the tax bill, but I think certain elements that are being discussed, like some of the R&D expensing and bonus depreciation, I think those things, if those make it into the final bill, I think could be really beneficial in terms of creating an environment that encourages businesses to continue to invest for the long term and invest in their workers. On the flip side, I also see, for example, some of the conversation around clean energy and incentives to invest in clean energy. And I think depending on where those shake out, lots of organizations, including mine, are really actively making investments in some of those technologies like solar that I think allow us to produce more efficiently, but also employ people. So I think, depending on where that lands, that could cause some companies to pull back on some of those investments. So I think it's a bit of a moving target right now, but those are some of the things I'm paying attention to.
Yeah. You've heard this a lot, but more certainty around the cost base that drives a return on investment for new capital expenditures is really important right now. So there's a lot of positive things that come out in the tax bill. Tariffs are out there too.
You just used another big word in Washington.
We were going to get to it sooner or later, and the certainty around that is really important. I mean, as we've talked to our customers, while they continue to invest in line expansions and modernizations with new technology that help them be especially competitive around the world, we do see a pause on some of the capital expenditures, which will bring with it new employment opportunities as well. But these companies want to be sure that the return on investment that was part of the original business case for making these investments is still firmly in place. And that means understanding what your costs are going to be and making sure that the revenue expectations of these new business ventures are still going to be valid so that they can count on the same demand from their customers. That's what we heard as we've talked to companies that either have pulled the trigger on new investments or are holding off. Those are really the top two concerns that they're seeking a little bit more clarity on. They know that things aren't going to be perfectly clear going forward, but when they're making decisions to pause, those are the most commonly cited reasons.
I couldn't agree with you more, Blake and Sarah. I think that the uncertainty prior to something going into law is a very distracting area of concern. But once the tax bill gets passed, assuming it does, then the uncertainty goes down. You're dealt with the law. You have to follow the law. And what I hope it will do is spur more development in the manufacturing areas of our country and more construction and things of that nature. But I think what it'll do is it'll give people more opportunities to forecast what results can be, forecast what the costs are going to be. And I think that what we've learned in the last 8 years is that the United States has gone through a modern day industrial revolution with all the factories that are being made today. In a construction site, 90% of all construction materials can come from the United States. This is a very big issue, and it's helping us a great deal. So eliminating the uncertainty and going to a certain strategy moving forward is really what we hope we'll get out of this tax bill.
So Peter, staying on that one more moment, when you think about this industrial revolution, this renaissance in manufacturing in the US that the administration is trying to achieve, what do you think is one of the most important things that we need right now to actually meet that goal?
I think that back in 8 years ago, all construction materials, a third of construction materials came from overseas. And I think that that's now at 10%. So 90% of the materials that you can get today for any project in the United States come from the United States. And we have 400 people just monitoring supply chain issues. And I think that that number will go up. I think it will go up to 100% of all construction materials in the United States. I'm hopeful that that is the way it's going to go, and I really believe that we will be self-sufficient in building our buildings, building from materials in the United States.
Yeah, and if I can add, I mean, just to underscore the importance of manufacturing, I think from a professional standpoint, it is really at the very core of the American economy. There are about 12 million people who are directly employed in manufacturing today, and it's far more than that when you think about people whose jobs are to service the manufacturing sector, capital formation, and things like that. To be able to make this strong, it takes a comprehensive approach, and certainly targeted tariffs are a part of that to level the playing field. Tax and the things that we've talked about and are optimistic for, regulatory reform, which I think construction could certainly empathize with, workforce development, which of course is the theme of this program, and the thoughtful use of technology. Labor costs are relatively higher in the U.S. than in other places, certain other places around the world. That's a fact, but to be able to be competitive with anybody in the world, to be able to take on all comers and to be successful, the use of technology along with an engaged and enabled workforce really is the winning hand.
Sarah, anything your company is dealing with right now when you think about the uncertainty around tariffs? Your company designs and produces furniture, for high-performing workplaces and offices, but furniture is, something people can relate to. At the same time, how is this uncertainty affecting your ability to hire and plan for the future?
Yeah, well, I think for us, certainly we are experiencing the uncertainty like many others, and Steelcase, we take great pride in being a very agile and adaptable organization. We're more than 100 years old, and we've had to be very agile to survive for that many years. But at the same time, I think the uncertainty, as you were both describing, impacts not only us and our ability to plan for the long term, but more importantly, it impacts our customers. And when our customers feel uncertainty about making the decision to invest in their workplace or invest in the products or in projects that drive demand for our business, we really feel that. So just to give you a quick example, I remember in April, during one of the rounds of tariffs going in and out and back and forth, there was some new set of tariffs that were taking effect at midnight that night, and that very next day we had a board of directors meeting. So we had spent a bunch of time trying to prepare to spend the whole morning taking our board through, how these particular tariffs that had just gone into effect at midnight would impact our business and our budget and our plans. And then we went to lunch with our board, and I think around 1 o'clock that afternoon, we started getting the news alert saying that those tariffs had now gone away. So we literally, in the span of 6 hours, had been through a whole cycle of are we or aren't we. So I think that kind of environment makes it, especially challenging. And I have absolute confidence in our policymakers in Washington and elsewhere that they will make decisions that are in the best interest of the U.S. and the U.S. economy, but it would be great to have that paired with clear communications and some degree of certainty and stability to help all of us make good decisions.
So, Peter, one of the other big policy decisions or inflection points here in DC is around immigration and immigration policy. And often when we think about workforce development in industries like construction, that's something that immigrants have fueled for a long time in terms of jobs. What's your viewpoint on that going forward?
Well, first of all, you have to follow the law. There's no question about it. You have to follow the law. So we do an audit of all of our 13,000 employees and the 142,000 people that we have on our job sites every day to make sure that they have the right permitting and things of that nature. We'd like to see a path for immigrants, both in the construction industry, the food industry, and all this, for a clear path for citizenship. We'd like to see that. We believe that, from what we understand, that there may be an immigration bill maybe in the third year of this term. That would be a good thing to see, and it will help eliminate uncertainty, help define home strategies for a lot of the people that want to seek work in our industries. So we are supporting the immigration efforts in the administration to try to find the most efficient path to citizenship as we currently see it.
Blake, you mentioned technology, another big T word. We've talked about taxes, tariffs, technology. AI is something that is changing the way companies are planning for the future in lots of different industries, but it's also making a lot of workers nervous or affects what careers they want to go into because they're thinking, well, that job may not even exist in 5 years. So what are you seeing in terms of technology, AI, and the workforce?
Yeah, I mean, we like to frame the adoption of new technology, and of course artificial intelligence is a big piece of this, as a way to give scarce workers superpowers, to be able to make the most of their skills. And it's all about being competitive globally. And so, as I mentioned before, that really is through the combination of using cutting-edge technology along with the workforce that's comfortable interacting with it. When you do that, you're competitive and you can do more of whatever it is that you're doing, make more of whatever it is you make, and that generally involves hiring more people, right? It's not the same jobs as existed necessarily 20 years ago, but it's more jobs. And when you can do it efficiently, you earn the ability to be able to enter into new lines of business. I know in our own company, adding cybersecurity consulting, adding mobile robots through an acquisition, other activities, digital services, creating digital twins and optimizing throughput for our customers through simulation tools. Those are all things that we were able to do by earning a certain amount of profit and being able to expand into new lines of business, which involved hiring. I mean, we're an automation company, but we have significantly more people than we did when I came into the role, and I expect we'll continue to hire. Again, it's not going to be exactly the same jobs, but that's why we spend so much time in concepts of lifelong learning that Sarah talked about are super important. People who have the domain expertise, who understand manufacturing, and being able to add through the course of their career a comfort with generative AI, to be able to use the new tools to allow them to be able to make the most of their knowledge. We really think that that's what contributes to the most successful companies.
Sarah, you talked earlier about upskilling. How I feel like in these times where technology is advancing so quickly, it's hard to stay ahead in terms of skills so that you can keep adapting to how technology is replacing some of the rote tasks, but then that you have the skilled workforce to do the advanced manufacturing. How are you adapting to that?
Well, I think it goes back to that continual effort and investment in skilling our workers or giving our workers new skills to allow them to be successful. So I think technology investment has to go hand in hand with training and development. It's hard for me to imagine how we would do one without doing the other. So just an example, over the past few years, we've invested pretty heavily in automation and new technologies to allow our factories to do mixed model manufacturing. So essentially being able to create like a very wide variety of quite disparate products like on one factory line. And we made that investment in the technology, but we had to pair that with investing in our people and training them to use these new tools and new technologies in ways that, we believe are not just about allowing us to operate more efficiently, but really allow us to unlock the full potential both of our systems, and our people. So I think that combination, I don't see technology and talent as a trade-off. I think you invest in both, hand in hand, and that's how you keep moving everyone forward.
Peter, when you think about meeting the challenge of 500,000, I think you said, new construction jobs that needs to be filled over the next several years, what do you think is one of the biggest challenges to meeting that goal?
I think as I said earlier, Peggy, the biggest challenge is making our industry more welcoming, making sure that people find a place where they can be at their best and be treated with respect and dignity. We truly believe, and we signed a charter with the BRT many years ago, that that all-encompassing loyalty to our companies, not just the shareholders, but to the employees. And we really believe that our philosophy is people first, projects second, and profits third. Because if you get the first two correct, the profits will come. So I think that in order to meet the demand, there are so many workforce development programs. There's the ACE mentorship program, the Pell Grants. There's so many different organizations out there providing for the models for people to come into the industry, but we're not attracting them fast enough because of the perception of the industry. We have to change the perception of the industry. You have to remember, the 8 million construction workers are professionals. These are skilled people. They're professionals. And I think we have to change the paradigm in the United States, whereas what's Mary going to do when she graduates from high school? Well, the real answer, the normal answer is, oh, she's going to go to college. But maybe we need to change the paradigm where, so what's Mary going to do after high school? Well, Mary's going to be an electrician making $100,000 a year. And I think that's where we have to put our efforts into those options, that the options are that you can earn a living, you can grow a family, you can do anything you want to do because the opportunity is here in the United States.
One of the things I think is so exciting about being on a panel with CEOs who have the vantage point of thinking about how their businesses are doing and growing, but also like, are they able to hire like you're thinking about right now? It gives you an incredible vantage point into the US economy, but also the global economy. And so much of the ability to keep jobs growing in the US, like we've seen them hold up over the last few years, is whether that economy holds up. So from your vantage point, Blake, where you sit in Milwaukee, how is the economy doing?
I'm optimistic. I think that as we talk to our customers, and we serve customers across all sectors of manufacturing, from automotive to warehouse automation and e-commerce, pharmaceuticals, food and beverage, energy, chemicals, mining. There is still significant pent-up demand for making investments. CapEx spending really hasn't recovered completely all the way back, if you go all the way back to the Great Recession in 2009. So there's a lot of opportunity to deploy these dollars, and I think that's still to come. I continue to look at the unemployment rate as maybe the one KPI that's the best bellwether, and at 4.2%, like almost a point lower in Wisconsin, which has a lot of manufacturing, that's positive. And as long as we can keep unemployment low and we can, in fact, add enough certainty to where we're going to unleash the investment in America, then I think we do have an opportunity to leave others behind economically and to really prosper over the coming years.
Sarah, from your vantage point in Grand Rapids, Michigan, what are you seeing with the
I would share I share Blake's optimism, and I look at it from the vantage point of the CEO of a company who, the majority of our business is providing furniture for office environments for companies around the world. So both of my fellow panelists are great customers of Steelcase, which we appreciate, and so are many other organizations. And so I look at, the investment that our customers are making and the continued growth that we see in investments in their workplaces and their people as they both grow their business and they aim to do things like attract and retain talent and advance their culture. And I hear lots of stories. One, I was just talking to the CEO a few weeks back of a major financial services organization who was sharing with me that, during COVID, like many companies, people were sent home, office workers were working from the office. During that, couple of years, they eliminated a number of their leases and quite a bit of their office space, but they continued to hire as they grow. So his dilemma was, I'm bringing all these people back, and I have thousands of more employees today than I did 3 years ago, but I got rid of all my space. So they're actually aggressively taking on leases, trying to fit out new space to give their people a home and to foster the growth in their own business. So I hear lots of stories like that make me continue to feel optimistic about the U.S. economy and employment and the growth that I think we will all enjoy.
Peter, you're not only in your industry at the center of jobs and the economy, but also interest rates. The Fed's meeting tomorrow. From your vantage point, running the construction company that you do, how's the economy doing?
I first of all, I want to mention that I sit in one of Sarah's chairs and I have a table.
You love it.
When I love it. And I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm very optimistic about our future. I really truly believe that the best is yet to come. The world is filled with many distractions, extreme anxiety and pain in a lot of different places. But we need to get through the distractions. We still have so many mouths to feed. We have so many people we're responsible for, so many people that we're accountable for. Our job my job as a CEO is to create the next 25, 50, 100 years of existence and sustainability of our company. And you only do that through optimism. You only do that through making sure that people are taken care of. You only do that by being the best cheerleader that you can, even in challenging and very uncertain times. But I really truly believe that the best is yet to come. We're going to get through the distractions and we're going to head forward. We have to.
Well, I almost want to end there because that was such a positive, optimistic note, but we do have just a minute or so left. So, Blake, going back to workforce development and building a competitive and successful manufacturing sector in America, what's one thing that you think you want to make sure people take away from you on the panel this morning?
I'll give you three short things. But we've talked about some of this before. First is lifelong learning and the concept of lifelong learning. You think about a 40-plus year career and how things have changed. I know since I started out a long time ago, to the skills that are important for my workforce today, and being able to provide the opportunities to continue to improve in the technical skills, the management skills, being able to move with the flow of progress there, super important. Second, as you develop educational programs for your workforce, it has to be outcome-based. It can't just be rote training, put somebody in a class for a week. People learn in different ways, some self-paced, some in a cohort, but outcome-based, what actually works. And sometimes that requires longitudinal studies to be able to track the progress over a period of time. We do that with our Academy of Advanced Manufacturing, and the results are super encouraging. You got to do it. It's a lot of work. It takes, years worth of data collection to see how it's actually showing up in the marketplace. But that outcome-based approach is really important. And then finally is the partnerships. Training often has an intensely local element to it, so making partnerships with the local community colleges, with the customers, the businesses, the manufacturing companies in our case that are going to be the consumers in understanding what's available to them, what community colleges are around, what skills are they looking for, who can help deliver a comprehensive approach to manufacturing. So we work with robotics manufacturers and we work with other purveyors of technology because that's what the real world looks like. It's not just an array of Allen Bradley brand products that we sell, it's all the other technologies. And so bringing those consortia, if you will, together in partnerships is also really important.
Thank you, Blake. Sarah, key takeaway?
Gosh, that was a great list from Blake, so maybe I'll add one thing, just building on your comment about partnerships. I think another place that we've touched on in this panel where partnerships can really help between industry, government, the education sector, and others is in this idea of how do we reframe people, and especially young people's views of careers in manufacturing and construction in these industries that maybe aren't always someone's first, thought when they decide, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I just, because I've seen it with my own eyes, when you bring someone into a modern manufacturing facility and you help them see the possibilities, that is can be a life-changing moment. So how can we work together to create more of those opportunities for more people?
Peter, you talked about dignity and you talked about being optimistic for the future. Any other key takeaway?
I would say, we have a lot of leaders in the room. Go out and care for everyone that you come in contact with and the strangers that you don't come in contact with until you meet with them for the first time. I think if you care, it's hard work. If you don't care, life is a cinch. And I think you have to go out and care for people, and you have to make an effort to connect with them, because you may impact somebody's life, and then they will model that behavior and hopefully impact somebody else's life.
Well, thanks to our incredible panel for their time, effort, and care today. Thank you.
Thank you.